Hunter S. Thompson once said, "The edge, who can explain it? The only people who know where it is are those who have gone over." We're about to find out. Humanity, all of us, stands at the edge. Johan Rockström, Stockholm Resilience Center, showed the planetary boundaries. We are beyond the edge of what the planet can tolerate in at least 3 areas and rapidly heading to it in others. Climate, the nitrogen cycle, loss of biodiversity, Global Biodiversity Outlook 3. We're losing species now at a faster rate than has happened since the dinosaurs went extinct, but this time we're doing it. 3 of the world's ecosystems are tipping into collapse. Coral reefs, sorry scuba divers, business as usual by perhaps as early as 2035. There will be no living coral reefs on planet Earth. The Amazon, this is a bit more serious, it's the Earth's lungs and we're losing it. And the oceans are acidifying. In California this year, we've lost over $7 billion in agricultural production. And Steve Chu, used to be Secretary of Energy, said by the end of the century, the nation's salad bowl could be a dust bowl. Dr. Kate Raworth at Oxford has shown the inner edges that we are not yet meeting, what it is that humanity needs to have a decent life: food, water, energy, justice, equality. These impacts are hitting the poor worst. 20 million people displaced by flooding from climate change in Pakistan, which has nuclear-tipped missiles. And now millions of people across the North Africa at risk of starvation. Now, if all of this begins to sound a little like that old book, Limits to Growth, that was wrong, yeah? Well, maybe. The Smithsonian a couple of years ago was so unkind as to republish those old collapse graphs with what has happened, the data that we have since the book was published in '72. The dashed lines are the original graphs. The solid lines are the actual data. We're right on track, yeah? Sir John Beddington, chief scientist of the UK, has shown that the ecological collapse is intimately linked with the financial collapses. And until we begin to do business in more sustainable ways, we will lurch from collapse to collapse to collapse. As what I call the tower economy brings to itself ever greater wealth to ever fewer people, we are now, all of us as humans, are in service to the economy, which is itself in service to finance. That's the wrong way round, and it's fragile. Our economy now is 70% based on consumption. Many of your companies exist to sell stuff. The faster you can sell stuff, the faster money and stuff flows through the economy, the higher the gross national product goes. But are we any better off? Ellen Goodman, normal is getting dressed in clothes you buy for work, driving through traffic in a car you're paying for in order to get to the job, to pay for the clothes and the car and the house that you're now leaving vacant because you're at work, getting the money to pay for it all. GDP goes up, but happiness, genuine well-being, is staying pretty flat or declining. What would you suggest that I buy to fill that dark, empty space in my soul? The tower economy has already almost collapsed. 07, 08, $50 trillion, 80 million jobs evaporated. And if you count structural unemployment, we're still there, 37% unemployment. 23 million people on food stamps. This is a record number. I mean, who would have thought that a bank none of us had ever heard of on an island most of us couldn't locate on a map would collapse and threaten the Eurozone? So then Merkel, Europe's banker, says, that's all right, we'll just give all the depositors a haircut. Directly, Vladimir Putin's on the phone. No, you won't. That's my Russian mafia money. Who's running this economy? Financial Times a year or so back, a central banker said, "We don't fully understand what's happening in the advanced economies." Well, that's reassuring. And the maestro, those of us who look to these institutions to have the self-interest to protect us are in a state of shocked disbelief. The system didn't work. So have we survived? Well, FT says that the stock market's at record heights, although Christine Lagarde warned growth is not what we'd like to see. Yeah, this here wreck ain't over with yet. Jeremy Grantham runs a $100 billion investment fund. I commend to you his piece on Charlie Rose, in which he walks through the dynamics of why the business assumption that for the economy to work it has to be at 3 to 8% growth per year, it's going to be more like 1 or 0, which is interestingly what that old book Limits to Growth said we had to be at. Now you have the financiers and the disruptors coming together, yeah? This is interesting. Here's why. This is the face of what's been called peak oil. This is not to say we're out of oil. There's a lot of oil underground. But the cost of getting it, this is the capex of some of the majors over the past few years. ExxonMobil spent 50% more in capital expenditure to get oil out for a 6% increase in production. Royal Dutch 39, Chevron 89, and in Chevron's case, they got negative addition to their proven reserves. At the same time, the banksters are back. They're bigger now than they were before the collapse. And we're all getting poorer. From World War II until '79, all classes grew together. Since then, with the advent of the folk advised by the Mount Pelerin Society, the Austerians, the rich have gotten uber rich. Emmanuel Sayes and Thomas Piketty, from 2000 to 2007, the incomes of the 0.1% grew about 94%. So now 85 people, several of whom live here in New York, have the same amount of wealth as the world's 3.5 billion poorest. Think this matters? This is not true in all countries. Japan, the CEO to worker pay is a ratio of 11 to 1. Not in this country, 475 to 1. So if you think the tide is rising, yeah, it's on the backs of people who are underwater, who are living at the edge. And this is not good business. Dr. Kate Pickett, Dr. Richard Wilkinson, in their book, The Spirit Level, have shown that more unequal societies have more of everything we don't want, whether it be shorter lifetime, higher murder rate, teenage births, all forms of illness. Inequality is causative of all of these. And Mandela said it, poverty is not an accident. We created it, and we can solve it. Remember, if institutions lose legitimacy, they die. I like the little guy at the bottom who's turned around and is walking away. This is the risk to the tower economy. It can come down. I spent time with Occupy in London, in San Francisco, in Seattle, here in New York. This was the first shot across the bow, and it hasn't gone away. It's why Tom Piketty's book, this is 700 pages of arcane economic statistics translated from the French, became the #1 best-selling book on Amazon. It's why the Russell Brand video was the most watched video on YouTube all of last year, calling for revolution. Now, myself, I think revolution is a very bad idea. I prefer the gentle wisdom of Pete Seeger, who lived up the Hudson. He said, the key to the future of the world is finding the optimistic stories and letting them be known. Stories like Richmond, California, where the mayor, Gail McLaughlin, got teamed with the city council and Occupy. And they sent a letter to the 5 banks holding the underwater mortgages, of which Richmond had a high percentage, and said, renegotiate those underwater loans so that they're no longer underwater and so that the people living in those houses can afford them, or we, the city, will take the property by eminent domain and we will renegotiate it. The banks are all suing Richmond. This here wreck ain't over with yet, but watch what happens in Richmond. But it's not an us versus them. If it's an us versus them, we lose. It needs to be Occupy meets Wall Street. We need to put forth strategies to create a real economy. And in this economy that we have now, it is the disruptors, it is the heretics who've been left out, disenfranchised. In this new economy that a group of us are working on that we call the edge economy, we want to roll those edges back into the center, into a conversation. The island of Egg in Scotland. A group of people got together, crowdsourced funding to buy the island and to take it 100% renewably powered. It's the only place in Scotland now with net in-migration. When you stand on the edge of a cliff, of a precipice, wisdom says, take a step back and turn around. And when you turn around, you see all that has been left behind, intact nature and human community. We can build a better economy, an economy in service to life. And to do this, we seek the creatives, the artists, the heretics, all of us who 500 years ago would have been the ones they came for with their little caged wagons. Janine Benyus, founder of biomimicry, teaches us that where in nature edges come together, the edge of a forest meets a meadow, a river meets the ocean, this is the place of greatest abundance because it is the place of greatest diversity. And it is this diversity that is now needed back in our economy. We now have an economy that seeks to homogenize the planet. We need an economy of place, of honoring place and diversity. The poet Wendell Berry said, because we have not made our lives fit for our places, our forests are ruined, our fields eroded, the streams polluted, the mountains overturned. Hope then to belong to your place by your own knowledge of what it is that no other place is, and by your caring for it as you care for no other place, this place that you belong to, though it is not yours, for it was from the beginning and will be to the end. Where is your place? And why is it different? And celebrate that as the basis of an economy. This edge economy is already emerging. William Gibson said, the future's already here, it's just not widely distributed. The edge economy already employs in renewable energy more people than the fossil fuel industry. It performs better in a down economy. It's more based on manufacturing. Occam Steiner of the UN Environment reckons that by 2030, half the global workforce will be in this green economy. It's emerging in Germany, where Bavaria, the one state in Germany, has already put up more solar than all of the US. This is an immediate threat to the established order of the electric utility industries. The old way of centralized, vulnerable power plants or the new distributed generation. Steve Chu said the utilities are in risk of being FedExed, like the post office got FedExed. And here it is. This is my ranch. 5-kilowatt solar system, and my leaf. And several companies are coming to market with refrigerator-sized storage for renewable energy. If the utilities are nice to me, I will continue to do what I do now, which is interconnect. So when I'm gone in the afternoon, the solar system is pumping out electricity for them to run the air conditioning load. If they're not nice, I buy one of these, and I cut the tie, and I stand alone. This is what's called the death spiral. And in Europe already, the top 20 utilities have lost $600 billion over the past 5 years. Tesla is now valued at half of General Motors, despite producing a few fewer cars. Why? Because Tesla's producing batteries. The edge is also where entrepreneurs have always left to sail out into new worlds. And they bring back the word that the world's not flat. We didn't fall off the edge. It's a round world out there. And we can discover the circular economy, the sharing economy, the collaborative economy, in contrast to the economy that is now liquidating people and place. Some of my students, winning the highest entrepreneurial award in California, one team created EOS Climate. This is a technology to destroy refrigerant gases. Thrilling, huh? Refrigerant gases are about 11,000 times worse for the climate than CO2. So it's an important thing to do. But then they got clever. They said, with new technology, we can build apps that will track chain of custody of these refrigerant gases so that they can be recycled. Every time you do it, it saves about $5 a pound on these refrigerant gases. So it's a good business deal for the companies. And then at the end of their lifetime, they get destroyed. At each step, earning carbon credits in the new California market. This is how you transform a problem into a very profitable solution. Or the kids in the supercar competition. This is a car that got almost 3,000 miles per gallon. You can do it low-tech. Light. Over 1 billion people do not have electricity in today's world. So you take a soda bottle, fill it with a liquid, punch it through a hole in the roof, and when the sun is shining, you have light inside. Or attach the little solar device with a little battery to the same soda bottle, and you have light at night. Take our lawns and turn them into urban gardens. When you do this, when you entrepreneur, you create jobs. The light blue above the line are the net jobs created by small businesses. The dark below the line are the net jobs created by the big businesses. Since 1977, according to the Kauffman Foundation, big business has been a net job destroyer. Big money is not a job creator. It's little money, it's entrepreneurial money, it's startup money, it's the disruptors. I was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with my friend Tom Rivet-Carnac, director of Carbon Disclosure Project, when they announced that the companies that are the leaders in reporting to CDP on their carbon emissions have over 5% higher return on equity, 18% greater stability in cash flow, and higher growth than the Global 500. In my book, The Way Out, Kickstarting Capitalism to Save Our Economic Ass, we run through hundreds of examples of how we can solve the climate crisis at a profit. And the principles of the edge economy start with resource productivity. Efficiency is cheaper than any kind of new supply. And then move on to redesigning how we make and deliver everything, using approaches like Walter Stahel's circular economy or biomimicry. And then manage all of our institutions to be restorative of human and natural capital, the capital that is in short supply that our current economy is liquidating. It's happening, whether it be reports in Harvard Business or sustainability certifications, or my friend Yvonne getting the cover of Fortune, or the evil empire going green. Trust me, when Walmart goes green, it is not out of the goodness of their hearts. There's a business case. Harvard, sustainability isn't the burden on the bottom line it was thought to be. It is the touchstone of all of innovation. And in the future, only companies that have it as a goal will achieve competitive advantage. When those wild-eyed environmentalists at Goldman Sachs tell you that the companies that are the leaders in environment, social, and good governance policy have 25% higher stock value than their less sustainable competitors, there's a business case. And there are now over 53 separate studies. This is a study of studies you can download from my website, of studies showing that the sustainability leaders are outperforming the laggards. Unilever. You want to talk about a disruptor, Paul Polman. Within a week of being named as the CEO of Unilever, he said, we're not going to report quarterly. His stock lost 10% value immediately. He said, good. He said, I respect you as a human being, but if you believe that my managing your company on a 90-day rotation is increasing core business value, I don't want you as my owner. Stock's now up. They have pledged to cut their environmental impact in half by 2020, source everything that they get from something grown from sustainable agriculture, lift 1 billion people out of poverty. And this May, they announced Unilever is going 100% renewable. And they're not alone. IKEA, Walmart. Steve Howard of IKEA said, tackling resource scarcity and climate change and providing a great quality of life can only be done with good policy, with business innovation, and that this clean revolution is the industrial transformation that we've been looking for. We've put a team together, led by the Prime Minister of Bhutan, actually the ex-Prime Minister of Bhutan, so he can now play with us, Dr. Robert Costanza, father of ecological economics, Dr. Jacqueline McGlade, Chief Scientist of the United Nations, Dr. Ida Kubashevsky, Richard and Kate, Ashok Khosla of India, people from around the world to create a conversation on this edge economy. Join us. We call it the Alliance for Sustainability and Prosperity, ASAP4all.org. Join the conversation. The time is over for the cold-eyed pride and arrogance of single dilettantes. We need to co-preneur the solutions by doing it together, by bringing in from the edges those people, those disruptors who have been left out. Bucky said it. We are called to be the architects of the future, not its victims. Do you want to play? Seriously, if you want to play, this is the world premiere of this concept. I'll be taking it to Europe next week to a meeting of thought leaders from around the world. But I'm serious. This is not my idea. It is an idea that has been put together by a group of people, and we need your help. What is the strategy of change that will get us out of the mess we're in now? And as Tommy Lee Jones said, if it's not, it'll do till the mess arrives. Step by step, Monday morning, what do we do to move out of this mess and into an economy, as Bucky said, that works for 100% of humanity? So we've got about 10 minutes. Be happy to field any questions or take any comments that you have. There are microphones here. Seriously, we need your help. The earth needs your help. So did I say anything controversial? Dead silence. Come on, there's got to be in this room somebody who has a thought on the Monday morning steps. I'm quite serious. There will be an article on this coming out in The Guardian probably within a week, and we will be asking the world, how do we build this new economy that works for all of us? Please, microphone.
Hunter, thank you. We're sitting in probably a very engaged audience, and we're people who see the truth of what you're saying. My question is, the people that really need to hear this aren't here, and what is it that makes them so afraid of this vision?
Margaret Mead said the only person who likes change is a wet baby. And I would argue the baby squalls all the way through the process. So change is scary. And arguably, the people who really need to hear this are doing very well off the current system, which is what puts us at risk. That little guy who turned and walked away, if we all walk away, if we walk out of this current system, then the system collapses. And as I suggested, collapse is not where we want to get to. We want to entrepreneur a soft landing. We want to entrepreneur our way to a world that works. But part of the problem is the people that really need to hear it are the ones who are winning. And it's very difficult to change when you're winning. So I'd appreciate any thoughts you have on how to get this to them. They took down my slide. Can you guys stick back up the slide with the address? Please write me with any thoughts that you have. I'm serious. This is not this should not be a one-way transmission. This should be a conversation. Sir.
Hi, Hunter. Wow.
It's loud.
Peter Crosby. We know each other from social capital. I would say conferences have become a movement over the course of the last 7 years. Yesterday, Joy Ito, who we both know, talked about the hacking of accounting as being an area that's ripe for innovation. I've followed the true cost accounting, real cost accounting models and advocacy over the course of the last couple of years. How does that model, how do those different ways of calculation, externalities put on the balance sheet, how can they play a role?
Absolutely. We call it integrated bottom line. You've heard the triple bottom line, people, planet, profit. When businesses use that framing, they bolt on programs for people and planet, and they become cost centers. If instead you ask, how is it, as Ray Anderson did, as Paul Pullman is doing, how is it that behaving more sustainably enhances every aspect of my shareholder value? You realize that if you implement efficiency, it drops your cost. If you behave sustainably, you become the place that the best young talent wants to come work for. Millennials won't work for a company if they feel the company's values are not aligned with theirs. And if you want young talent, you had better be that kind of company. Reducing risk. CEOs are now being sued because of their carbon emissions. Ability to attract capital at lower cost, the whole SOCAP movement. And indeed, Kevin Jones and Sean Paul and I are in conversations about using this fall's SOCAP in part as a way of crowdsourcing this strategy of change for the edge economy. Wouldn't that be cool? You gonna come?
Oh yeah, every year.
Accounting is clearly key to this. Finance is clearly key to this. We need to shift the flows of finance out of the speculative economy into the real economy. And so accounting for the cost of doing things the way we do it today, at least keep shadow accounts. Puma did this with their environmental profit and loss, and they found that the risk to them of just their carbon emissions and their use of water equaled their profitability. And Jochen Zeitz is now with Richard Branson on the B team trying to look at how do they take this concept and bring it to a wide array of companies. In Europe, the International Integrated Accounting Committee is trying to figure how to change accounts. And I worked with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales on how to do this. In this country, SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, is starting to do this. And they are rolling out sector by sector, a sector a quarter, how you would do sustainability accounting for all the SIC codes. So very exciting stuff happening, and thanks, it's really important.
Thank you.
I'll see you at SOCAP.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Monica. I'm from Norway. I work with Save the Children. And I have a question. What do you think about what shouldn't the world business cooperate with the United Nations and NGOs to solve the big problems in the world? Right now, the United Nations work on the next 1,000-year goals. So there are goals for the major things, the major problems to solve. And do you have any ideas?
Yes, businesses are starting to work with the UN. Georg Kell runs the Global Compact, which is businesses that are working with the UN. I've been addressing the Open Working Group, also some of the select committees that are building these new sustainable development goals. And any of you who are not, if your company is not part of Global Compact, you really ought to look at joining. This September, right over on the river, the UN will set forth this new set of goals of how to guide the world in solving these problems. They will be called the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is going to be a real interesting catfight. So don't sit on the sidelines. This is your future. Thanks.
Thank you.
You had me at Hunter S. Thompson. Well played, like that. I'm with a company called Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL. We're a global real estate company. But I also serve as a trustee of the Nature Conservancy in Wyoming. It just so happens that Hank Paulson used to be the chair, as you know, and the current CEO, Mark Terzic, is from Goldman Sachs. So there's this very interesting crossover from finance, the tower economy, into kind of seeing what you're talking about, right? Seeing the future. Terzic has a book out right now called Nature's Fortune. So for those of you who are interested, I'd highly recommend it. But as I've found in my journey, finding an organization that's apolitical and science-based has been helpful for me. It's not fringe. Whenever you talk about sustainability, it gets into the, you know, the tree huggers, et cetera. But that's not the case. And so I know you were talking about the edges and the fringe, but I also think the populace, the general populace in the middle, needs to understand the facts. And you know, so can you comment on that? You know, how do you get to the middle?
Now there is the question, isn't it? We call it the edge economy because we're all standing at the edge, whether we know it or not. And the first principle, clearly, of dealing with an edge economy is tell the truth, know the truth, look at the precariousness of the situation we're in. But the goal of it is to roll the edges in for a conversation at the authentic center. I spend most of my time, the little of it I'm home, hanging out with cowboys, with ranchers, with farmers, with the good old boys who listen to Fox News. And having these deep conversations about, is it working for you? What's the climate doing to your hay crop? When hay hit 20 bucks a bale, a lot of them started to say to me, you know, this stuff you've been talking about climate, is that really real? So reaching across into communities we don't normally talk to, which the Nature Conservancy is excellent at doing, is very important. And finding a way to come to the center. We thought about calling it the center economy. And in fact, when you read the Guardian piece, you'll see, if they leave it in, the last line is, there's a bottle of whiskey in it for whoever names this new economy. It's not the new economy, that dull. And the edge is where we are, and it's the transition to. But what do you call where it is we're going to? So enter the contest. Thanks.
Thanks for your talk today. How are you talking to millennials, Generation Y, specifically at the school level, universities. As you said before, my generation, the Generation Y, will not work for companies that are not eco-friendly or conscious about their business practices. How are you talking to schools, to students, and more importantly, how are you talking to students who are building startups as well in this field?
I teach. I teach at 3 different universities, well, 4 now. I also teach in China. And I spend as much of my time as I can with young people, listening to them, because this is their future. I will be happily dead by the time most of the worst consequences hit. So will almost all of us in this room. You will not. You will see it. Sorry.
Hopefully I can change that as well.
Hopefully we can change it. Sylvia Earle, the great oceanographer, her deepness, said the next 10 years are more important than the next 10,000. So whatever it is that you are doing, the next 10 years, you will all be here. Let's make it matter. So thanks. One more and then we quit.
Thank you.
My name is Matt. I'm just interested to hear you talk about the name behind your organization. Why do you put natural and the capitalism together?
Why did I put natural and capitalism together? Because it is the ism of natural, of nature. It's not natural capitalism. It is a capitalism for the ism of natural capital. And as Pavan Sukhdev says, if we do not put value on this stuff, we will treat it as having a value of 0, which is what we're doing now. And it's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. So we need to start putting a value to it. Thanks.